Hello and welcome back. I've missed you. Where have you been? Did you watch last week's class? I don't know. I didn't see you on there. Anyways, I'm just having fun with you because I'm having a really good day, right? You know those days that you wake up and you're like, this is going to be a good day. I even had a meeting with my CFO today. Those don't necessarily always go, fun. It's like, oh, let's pay our taxes today. It felt good. Anyways, I'm having a good day. I hope that you're having a good day. One of the things that makes about having a great day is not only doing what you do for work or craft, what your passion is. Listening to people all day taking on the mission is super fun. I have the best job ever. But we always say, and you'll hear practitioners always talking about coming up for air, right? Smelling the roses. So we have a coming up for air specialist today. And if you have never heard of this form of modality to help you have a better life and a more successful business, I can tell you I have done this work, and I am so super excited to introduce to you not only a fellow podcast hostess, right? But she is an international author, and you guys know how much I love books. But she is an incredible international breathwork facilitator. Her name is Christina Sommers. And before you go, she's a what? She's coming here to tell you what she's a what is all about, because you have to hear and know about how incredible, there's really successful people that we see out there in the world doing their thing that looks like they have it all together. And that's what we're supposed to do when we're on screen or living our life or on stage. But we all know that we all live the same life behind. It's what you do behind the scenes to keep you healthy, to keep you happy, to keep you optimized. And I can't say enough about breath work. And I'm going to stop saying about breath work because it's not my work. It's Christina's work. And Christina, welcome to the Mission Accepted show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. So other than the fact that we dressed the same today, look at us all in sync.
And didn't even plan it.
Didn't even plan it. We should both go buy lottery tickets today and see how that works out.
Right.
Tag. Okay, so look, breathwork facilitator. I think everyone gets the author part and the podcast host, but tell us about breathwork, where it falls in terms of, is it a treatment? Is it a philosophy? Is it a book? Fill us in.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny because as I've embarked on this journey, anytime I have a conversation with somebody and they're like, "Oh, well, so what are you doing?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm a breathwork facilitator." And they're like, "Breathwork? So you just breathe?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, and there's a lot of intention to it." So breathwork is one of those things. We all breathe naturally. It's an autonomic process. We don't think about doing it, but then at the same time, we can consciously focus on our breath, shift the way we're breathing, and adjust how our nervous system responds. So too often we get in these highly anxious situations, or we encounter some form of trauma, whether it's big trauma, little trauma, any kind of situation, and our breath will automatically change. But if we become conscious of it and shift it on our own, we can go from a very heightened state, very anxious, very to bringing it back down to a calm. Or if you're feeling, another thing that you can do with it too is if you're feeling very low energy, if you're feeling like you're having a hard time getting moving, you can adjust your breath to bring energy into your body and get your body moving in a natural way. So it's a natural process that you can use. It's a holistic modality, and you can use it as a one-off as needed, or you can get into a routine where you use it like a practice. What I'll do is take people on, we call journeys, as to what is your intention? What are you looking to do? What are you looking to shift? And then we'll set up a session focusing on different breath patterns. There's several different breath patterns that we can use, and depending on how they're used, will adjust your nervous system. It also, what I really like about it too, is it's like a form of meditation, but I call it like a meditation on steroids, because I have a hard time meditating because I'm so up in my mind all the time. And yes, our mind is meant to go. That's what our brains do. But when you get caught up in your mind, it's very hard to shift down into your body and get into that like meditative state. And then when you focus on your breath and very intentional, it takes it from the head down into the body and becomes a very somatic practice, an in the body practice.
So for clarification,
Yep.
an understanding about that, it really, what breath work is, it's a treatment. And in my understanding and in your explanation, it's something that people do for a number of things. And let's talk about that in a minute. But when you decide to do breath work, it's how you're breathing, you know, what your intention is. And really, when you think about breathing and just that momentum that happens when people breathe, you know, when we're heavy breathing, right? So you have different patterns that helps release different blocks and different traumas. I know when I decided to do it, I was in my 20s and I was going through a personal growth, personal development, and I was, you know, I was looking backwards to heal forwards. And so I was working with this great counselor, and we were looking at my family dynamics and some of the messaging that I got in that family dynamics, and was it serving me today, and some things that I needed to move through. You talked about some trauma, because sometimes even, you know, just listening to something over and over again. I mean, my mom was, you know, she's amazing, but she was raised in a really, you know, tight financial, you know, time in her childhood. So I could tell you how many times I heard money doesn't grow on trees. I mean, I could tell you a million times how many times money doesn't grow on trees. A penny saved is a penny earned, and blah, blah, blah. Right. And even when I was trying to move past my financial barriers, which really weren't mine, they were just the environmental, you know, belief system. Even kind of moving through that, I found personal development work and this kind of work great, because it actually was nice to be doing some talk therapy with a counselor or some coaching or whatever, and then being able to use the breath work as all I had to do was go show up, let someone else facilitate, and then move through that psychological stuff or that stuff in the body that, you know, how long was it going to take? I found that breath work, I was like, this is so much quicker. Like, I just found it so much quicker than moving through the talk stuff, you know, not to negate both. But what was it that took you to breath work? I mean, it doesn't seem that, you know, most people don't look it up and go, hey, never heard of this before, let's go in. So that's how
Right.
I came across breath work. Someone said to me, my girlfriend does breath work. And I was like, yeah, sure. Okay. And I was already in an open, searching, seeking mind that was looking to heal. What about you?
Yeah. So, and to touch on everything that you said too, I've been on this healing journey for a little bit, on this personal development, all the things. And there is a lot of mind work, but we can get caught up in the mind. And sometimes focusing on the mind too much, what purpose does it serve? Sometimes it really doesn't serve any greater purpose. It's not releasing anything. Where that's where the somatic of the breathing, of dropping into the body, really helps. And I think having the duality of both is incredibly important. Um, so for me, I happened to stumble upon it. I was participating in another program, and she had a guest come in who was the leader of a um, breathwork program. She not only leads breathwork, but she also teaches it, and she has the certification program. So I'm like, oh, this is interesting. Let's hear what this is all about. As we're going on, she prefaces it with, okay, so our minds often get in the way, if we want to call it our ego self. You'll start breathing, and your mind will kick in at this particular moment in time and say, this isn't working for me. I'm going to be that one person it doesn't work for. And she goes, when that happens, keep going, keep going. Because I have never had somebody not have an experience with that. So I'm like, okay, noted it, breathing through it. Sure enough, as soon as that moment hit, I'm like, Christina's going to be this one. Christina's going to be the exception to the rule. And she chimes in. She's so intuitive. She's so spot on. She chimes in and she's like, keep going, keep the breath moving. Your body has all the answers, like let the breath do the work. She's cueing. And sure enough, momentarily, something shifted and all these emotions came pouring out. All this energy, anything. And I can't tell you what specific trauma, because we all have our stuff. And that's what put me on this journey. Is one, I had a couple of big T trauma type experiences that I felt like I was called to help other people work through, since I worked through mine. But once she said that and I shifted it and I'm like, oh, I got to do more. Like this sold me. And every time I've had any kind of breathwork encounter since, something has always shifted. And what a relief it is that I don't have to go back and relive those particular moments. I don't have to put myself like through the mind, through talk therapy, through even coaching of it's key to become aware. But sometimes with that awareness, it pits you back into that particular instance, and that instance isn't always beneficial because it's you're reliving that same thing. Whereas if you can drop into the body and move whatever's living in there out without thinking about it, and I'm like you said, it's so much quicker, it's so much easier, it moves stuff, and you don't have to sit there and ponder on it and relive it and overanalyze. Like for all any of us who are overthinkers who like to overthink about anything and everything, you don't have to overthink about it. You can just let your body move what needs to move.
So thank you so much for explaining it. I know that when I was doing mine, the resistance that was coming up, it was exactly it, right? Because you don't think that it's happening. It's almost like in the last quarter of a run, like I know when I was running a marathon, it's the first marathon I ever ran, and I got to this place and it was just, the plateau, like that
Yep.
place. And there was a woman that was running with me because we were doing it for the Arthritis Society. We were not marathoners. And I looked at her and she looked at me and she's like, we keep going and no one stops for anything. And it was that because I said to her, who in their right mind? I actually said, I went to this place, I go, whoever thought this up? Like whoever thought running this much was like a good idea? Like, are we all idiots? Like everyone, and it was a big run. It was in Hawaii. We had to fly there. Like there's thousands of people, right? People had already crossed the finish line before we got to our first quarter, like, one of those world things. And I was like, who thought of this? Like conceptually, who thought of this, right? And she's like, whoa, aren't you in a fun place? And we were both like, okay, let's go and then you push through. And I think that's very much what experienced for me with breath work. It was like, you're there, you're there, you're there. And then all of a sudden you're in a different place, but that different place feels so relieving. For me, my body would get freezing cold. And I'm like, I'd be under like 6 blankets, right? And they're just like, that's your process, keep going. But so anyways, here we have this breath work and you decided to do it yourself and you had this experience. So what made you decide to incorporate that? Were you already doing holistic work? Like, was this your first interest? Like, how did you become a breathwork practitioner and go, okay, now I want to group this with other people?
Yeah, so several years ago, I was in a head-on collision, and pretty much I count my lucky stars. I'm grateful to be alive because had the everything not aligned the way it was, I probably wouldn't have survived. So that really changed my perspective on life. And I felt as I was in that healing journey of that aspect, I felt called to share my story. And I'm like, but I'm not a writer. What does that mean? Like, I'm an accountant by trade. Like, my day job while I'm working on getting my practice up and running is that I'm an accountant. So I'm like, I'm an accountant. I'm not a writer. What does that mean? And then hearing that calling, I didn't know what I was about to embark coming up. So then I was married at the time, and I was my marriage was it was a very toxic relationship. My spouse became heavily addicted to drugs, and that made it even worse. And finally, I got the courage through the series of a couple of events. I felt like I got the courage to leave my marriage. I felt like I was released to, okay, it's time to let this go. And that I longed for nothing but peace and joy in my life. And I thought as soon as he left that I would find that peace and joy. I thought he was the cause of all my inner turmoil. Little did I know, and about to find out, I kept myself so incredibly busy that I didn't allow myself time to feel. And then as soon as I would stop at night, all the thoughts, all the things that were told to me, all of the things would just come bubbling up. And I'm like, how do I deal with this? I like, this is not peace and joy. This is not how I was meant to live my life. Like, I was allowed to survive, and I'm not surviving. Like, we're made to thrive. We're made to enjoy our life. We're made to love our lives. And that's not what I'm doing. So what do I need to do? And that embarked my journey, which I started with body first, of exercise, eating more nutritious, Then it led me into meditation. And then I learned about EFT tapping. And then I learned about journaling. And I learned about all the various different modalities, which I'm very drawn to all of them. But this one called me out so much because it had such a significant impact so quickly. And all of the tools I think have their place, and they're all in my toolbox, and I use them interchangeably. Some I use as part of my daily practice, some I use on an as needed basis. But this is one I use on a daily basis, short little meditation, almost like dropping into a meditation. And then there's other times where I need the longer, more meditative, where you truly drop in and move stuff. Because that has the most profound impact on my life. That I saw the biggest shifts, the quickest shifts, where I could get out of my mind and I wasn't stuck in there. And I can truly say I've gotten to a point where I truly do love my life. Sometimes stuff happens and crap comes up, and what do you do with that, right? Now I know how to deal with it. You bring out your tools, you work through it, you feel the feelings, you move through it, and but don't let it rule your life where I once was. And I can truly say I'm thriving. I enjoy my life. And I feel very called to share that with the world, and why I'm so passionate about breathwork.
Fabulous answer, right? Fabulous answer. I think that, I mean, we hear it a lot in the work that we do, right? We get to sit across from all sorts of people, and you hear how the mess becomes the message, like, or when people have an experience and they utilize something and it was so powerful to them, and such a, even becoming an author, like you're an accountant, how did you write your first book? And it's that yearning inside. I think, Christina, when I hear you talk, it's like you heard something, you felt something, you took action on that. And I think that's where the bravery comes in. I think that's where, you have this beautiful glow around you. For those that are listening, not watching, is that's kind of what happens when you kind of brave up on the inside before you brave up on the outside. Like, I just hear this level of, this kind of work isn't the stuff that we all sign up for, right? It would be great to just kind of go through and, yeah, some stuff happened and you shake it off a little bit and you keep going, and nothing like, dusting the knees and getting back up and, kind of hit that ball again or what have you. But there's times where you need to stop and analyze or reevaluate or say to ourselves, is this working? And if it's not working, what resources do I have to be able to make a change in that? And what kind of life do I really want? And what do I really want to do? I think sometimes we forget those women that are out there. Me and you are both in some pretty considerable circles of people that are in a constant place of movement, or braving up, or crying and braving up, or crying or braving up, or no, I'm kidding. Or staying up late trying to get our chapters in, or whatever it is, right? But I know I'm kind of going off a little bit off the breath work, but when I hear your story, so that place inside that says I need to move, what do you do to work through that? Like, when you know that there's something that you're about to embark on, or I know that you coach women in terms of this work all the time. You must have people come up. So what is it that keeps you moving forward? And then let's talk a little bit about how you facilitate that for others, because lots of us have callings. Lots of us know that we have stuff that we've experienced in the past that is repeating cycles, or I just use that example of finances or whatever it was, right?
Yeah. So absolutely. I think the first key is becoming aware, because until you become aware, you don't know that anything needs to change. And I think that's where a lot of people stay stuck, is they're having this constant cycle of, oh, woe is me, oh, poor pitiful me, oh, pity. Like that what used to be me, the pity party of one. And at the same time, if nothing changes, nothing changes. So sometimes it's hard to hear, but it's being brave and hearing what you need to hear and letting it sink in, letting it plant that seed. When you become aware of saying, okay, now I have a choice. What do I want to do with that? Do I want to stay stuck in this stuff, or do I want to move to the next level? And I think a lot of places too, there's such high level stuff out there, high level information out there, that it's like there's all these easy, simple steps to do, But then we get stuck in the cycle of I'm doing the steps and nothing's changing, or it works for like a millisecond and then I'm right back into my stuff again. And I found myself in that same pattern as to why doesn't it work for me? What's wrong with me? And when I started to dig a little deeper, I learned, oh, because we're not digging down, we're just touching the top layer. But until you start working on those deeper levels, which, yes, the steps are simple, but the work is hard. But when you put the work in and you get to the other side, the benefits of it is so amazing. So it's like remembering what's on the other side, remembering where you want to get to, not where you are. And then really tapping into your intuition, finding an accountability partner, building your own toolbox of what works for you. And sometimes your toolbox has however many tools, you can use the same ones over and over and over again. They work perfectly fine, but you're in a different state and one of them won't work. So then it's like, okay, what other tool? It's not anything's wrong with you. It's not that these tools aren't working. It's that you're in a different state. So let's try something different. And sometimes you kind of have to do trial and error and what works best for you, because everybody's different. Everybody has the different set of limiting beliefs. Everybody has different stories. So it's identifying what yours is and what you need in that time. So one, working through that myself as I'm learning through that, and then also guiding other women as to identify what's going on. Where do you want to be versus where you are, and what stories do we need to change to get into that? And then what tools do we need to bring into to help accomplish that?
I think that's a great way to look at it, because many times people know where they want to be. They're like, I just want to be happy. I just want to work in a job that I love. I just want to be able to express myself. I just want to not avoid that family member. Like, I know when I go to that event and they're going to be there, I know that it triggers me or it upsets me. I don't even know if people know how to use the word trigger, but and that kind of thing. Or people find themselves in the same situations, right? Like, inevitably, no matter where I work, I always find myself with a boss that's like this, or a coworker that's like this, or what have you. And people see it as an external experience instead of having internal control. And I think one of the most interesting things about personal development work is that it gives you back a sense of power, and it also gets you vibrating differently. And that might sound really I don't think for my listeners that sounds weird at all, or out of character or what have you, but it really does. We know that when we work with certain, we're attracted to certain people, that you literally can change your external environment by changing your internal environment, right? Like, you won't get hired at a place that has a boss that's like that anymore, because it's not part of your story anymore. I love how you said, like, what's the story that you want to have? Well, you want to have a story where, this is financially happening. You're like, we all have them. I don't know if you have treasure maps or books or dream journals or girlfriends that know exactly what you want or whatever it is, but those things are more apt to happen if you are in the right place. The one thing I love about breath work is that it does cellular work, right? Like, it cleans toxicity out of your cells. Because imagine when you're breathing, like, I always use that example of, like, when you're running and that breath feels so good and so oxygenating, and it kind of fills you up. It allows you to move through things that honestly I probably didn't even want to go through from a talk therapy standpoint, or the talk therapy had hit its max, right? And you wanted to something to accelerate it. Anyways, I'm talking a lot about me because I love what you do, and I don't want to do that. But tell us, maybe give us some examples. Like, when does someone come to you? Why do they come to you? And maybe give us an example of someone that did come to you that had something that was an obvious shift.
Yeah, so there's a variety of ranges and reasons. Sometimes it's just because I'm such in a highly anxious state and I want to calm down. Sometimes it's I kind of have this thing I need to work through. So one of the girls I worked with, she was having a lot of things weren't working out the way she had imagined and almost the way she was told they were going. She embarked on this project, and things didn't turn out quite the way she anticipated. And she was feeling a lot of resentment towards things that had transpired. And she was almost stuck in that and didn't want to feel that way anymore. She felt it was really blocking her from moving on to what her true calling was. And so when she came to me, we had this brief conversation. We had this, what's going on. We started breathing through it, and there was a lot of heaviness. You could even physically see when somebody moves through something. So she came in and you could see the heaviness within her. And we were breathing through, and you could tell, like, when you're breathing, there's different aspects that can come up. So you can experience things like tetany, where your muscles will start contracting. There's times where you feel like you need to move and like kind of shake it out or shift. So there was a lot of moving going on. There was a lot of shifting, like, and that's one way our bodies physically move energy out. So it's not just through the breath, but it's through movement, it's through sound. So I'm watching her transition through the breath. And after I got done, after she got done, I should say, we ended the session, and I was like, so how are things going now? And she's like, I feel so much more open. I feel like that block isn't there anymore. That block was released, and now I almost have more clarity. I didn't get a clear vision of where I'm going next, but I feel the openness as to I can start stepping into it. And then we had a follow-up session a few months after. Like, I think this original one was like November-ish timeframe. So then we just had one a couple weeks ago, and she now has a new vision. She has new dreams. And as we're breathing through, she really felt like she almost had her hands in handcuffs. Her hands were bound, and she had this envisioning as we're breathing through, and through the breath work, her hands were released. So now she is set free to move forward and step into, and just even hearing the encounters that she's having since then is just like you said, the energy, things are starting to attract to her again. Things are starting to come to her. Like, you have to put yourself out there, but yes, you attract what you are resembling inside. So if you start to feel like you're repelling everything away from you, well, you got to look at what's going on inside, and your energy might be off, and you might need to breathe or any other number of tools that are out there to shift that energy to get back into that higher vibration to attract what you were truly desiring to attract.
Well said. I feel like well said, well done, right? Well said, well done. Is there anything else that you want to share with us around breath work? I mean, the one thing that I love for me when it was breath work, I like how breath work can be an isolated treatment, right? You can have a beginning and an experience, and you can see the shift. And then sometimes, I'll collaborate it with, getting a massage, because I like to get that massage feeling, or what have you. But is there anything else about breath work that you want to share with us that people should know?
Yeah, so breath work is so versatile. One, you have your breath, you can take it with you wherever you go. So if you need even just get into a business meeting and you find yourself in a really heightened state, take a moment it doesn't even have to be a full breath work session. Take some deep belly breath, making your exhale longer than your inhale. That will shift your nervous system back down into your parasympathetic, your rest and digest, so you can think more clearly and communicate more clearly. Or if you have a lot of things that you want to work through, like one of the things I'm doing is working on building a program. So it incorporates the coaching, so the mindset, as well as the breath. So we can physically move stuff out through the breath while we're working through the mind stuff and incorporating the two together. Or if you're finding you're having an off day and you just need a 30 or 60-minute session to work through whatever you're working through and get it flushed out, do the one-off sessions. But there are so many benefits from it, whether it's shifting that anxiety, shifting that, releasing some trauma, or even connecting into your higher self, or connecting to visions and where you want to go. It's so versatile and can be used in such a variety of areas that I don't know why anybody isn't utilizing your natural given tool.
Yeah. Well, I think that, well, first of all, I think that it's not something that gets talked about around the dinner table, right? Just kind of like it's, I think people are getting very comfortable with words like intuition and guidance and universal and spirit and metaphysical, right? And then there's the whole wave of, chakras people are kind of versed about because of yoga. And I think it's just these modalities sometimes don't get thought about until, and even though they're ancient modalities, even though that they've
Yeah.
been used in different cultures for a very long time, there's been this whole like, hey, that's not kind of how we do things around here. It's like when someone comes into the office and they do something a little different, it just takes a while for everybody else to get used to it until they start to hear or see the results of that happening. So I think breathwork's kind of one of those that's just not been talked a whole lot about, because it's really done predominantly like one-on-one, and you hear about it and then you do it yourself and then you become a facilitator or what have you. So that's what I think anyway. So you are a beacon. Before you leave and go do whatever it is that you're going to go to do today, tell us about this great book that you wrote. What's the name of your book? What's going on? I know that you're part of our book, and absolutely our audience knows about the 262, and Christina is a speaker and just nails it, and she's going to have information for you to share in the book, and I'm sure she will be at some live book launch coming up to a town or country near you. But you said that you were an international author and you were writing this while you were an accountant, so tell us about that.
Yeah, so I had the opportunity to be it's a co-author. Like, I haven't written my entire book yet, but that's going to be coming. This was like giving me a little taste of, yes, you can do this, and yes, how much healing can come from sharing your story too. I've always heard it, and until you actually do it, I'm like, oh wow, how much more was released during that process. But I co-authored a book called Ignite Your Courage, and it's really standing on the premise of taking an event that happened in your life that really caused you to, I need to step out in courage and really change my life, or impacted your life. Mine, it was changing my life, and it was changing it from that I was barely surviving, barely making it through, like, there's got to be more to life than this, to really, I'm on the other side and I'm loving my life, and I'm shouting it from the rooftops for as many people to hear, because we need a bright in this world. There's a lot of brightness out there, but there's also a lot of darkness, and the more we can shine our light and show that there's something on the other side, that you can choose to love your life, you can choose to have peace and joy. It is possible. The more we can get out there, and more people we can start healing, having their own healing journeys, and truly stepping into their authentic selves, the better.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, look, my friend, can you please tell people where to reach you? If there's anything else that you want to share, I know that you also have a podcast. Please tell us what that is. What's the name? Yes, we're going to have all of this in the show notes, but if people want to, so your story, and you're in 262 and they can hear you more often, what's your podcast?
Yeah, so my podcast is Loving Your Life Again. My website is Reload in Christ, and then I can be found by my name, Christina Sommers, on Facebook, or on Instagram, it's Reload in Christ.
Okay, and we'll have all of that as well. So we're going to completely shake it up. We're going to completely shake it up, and we're going to ask you a question that's got nothing to do with nothing other than something cool and something fun. Okay, so you are packing your suitcase and you're on your way to a desert island, and that's it. You're like, you have healed the world. You're going to go chill. This is it. You're packing your suitcase, and there's room for one album, and it's the album you couldn't imagine not listening to for the rest of your days. What album is that?
One album is so hard, because I listen to so many different types of music, depending on what my mood is, depending on what I need. But I think if I had to choose just one album that only had one artist, it would be Beautiful Chorus, Wheels of Light. Because really, no matter whether I'm in a really good place or I'm in a struggling place, their songs just have a way of you reconnecting to yourself, reconnecting to whatever you need to reconnect to, and truly drop in and find that joy, find that grounded, find what you need to find.
Awesome. Okay, so we're going to have that in the show notes as well, so you can all listen to what Christina is listening to. Thank you, my friend, for showing up today. Thank you for sharing something new that people probably haven't heard about. And again, these are the tools that are behind the curtain. This is the stuff that we do behind the curtain to be able to keep doing the stuff that we do in front of the curtain, whether it's staging or booking or teaching or running our businesses, or honestly taking on the mission. You can't take on the mission with a whole bunch of backpack full of heavy rocks. You got to be clean, you got to be fresh, you got to keep moving on. And these are some of the things that we do to do that. So thank you for sharing today. And look, listeners, we love you. Thank you for commenting. Thank you for sharing and doing all the things that a podcast host would want someone to do. And we so appreciate you. We know you're showing up on the 262. We know that you're coming and you're attending. There's a couple of things that I want to let you know as we're making the big announcement that we are just about to head into the most incredible time of this 262 project. We want you in and watching. We are going to be concluding in a very short period of time 22 summits. How incredible is that? And thanks to you and everyone that's involved in the project, we are actually, we are not abandoning the mission. We are continuing the mission. Now, we're not doing 22 summits in a year. You had your chance. You got to watch the crazy, but we are continuing with 4 summits a year globally. So they're online, so anyone from anywhere in the world can come and watch. It is the 262 Project for women and those that support women, which is pretty well everyone on the planet. And so if you are a speaker or you want to share your message like Christina did here today, we have some spots available for future speaking, and you can reach out, and you know how to do that. It's deb@debdrummond.com. That's super easy and super fun. And if you are a momager or a dadager out there, if you have someone in your life that's kicking it up, that's starting their own business, that's driving you crazy, this is the show to come talk about it on. So myself and Ocean, we're welcoming and opening up the door. We have a few more spots available for this year. If you can imagine being that far ahead of if a momager or a dadager wants to come on with their young entrepreneur who is residing in their home, please reach out and we are happy to have you on the show. So Christina, again, thank you for being with us today. Listeners, thank you as always. So now you know why I told you to just breathe, take a fresh air, pop up for air, come up for air, because of our great hostess today. So thank you, Christina, and we will see you again. And until we do, you stay well and be groovy. Bye for now.